Hello, everyone. So very often I see the argument that TF2 is at its core intended to be, one thing or the other. Usually, the argument is that TF2 is intended to be a casual game or intended to be played in this kind of way, and other ways are illegitimate, which is something I've kind of talked about in the past. But today I don't really want to just argue with the curmudgeons, but rather more so honestly celebrate or affirm, I guess, the different ways that people can enjoy this game and sort of talk about the nuances of the quote-unquote intended design of the game, right? But to answer the question, I suppose, of is TF2 intended to be competitive or casual? The answer there is actually kind of nuanced. I do think that if the answer were very unequivocally that it was designed to be a casual game, then that still wouldn't really matter. Because then it's like, okay, is this intended to be a casual game? Well, who cares, because it's still a really good competitive game nonetheless. But there actually are a lot of design elements to this game that lend TF2 towards a lot of depth and a lot of skill expression, which tend to be important things for a competitive shooter. So let's get started with some of those examples of these design elements that take a lot of care towards making the game very balanced and deep and enjoyable. And then we'll take a look at what that kind of entails, what the outcome is, and some of the different ways that people enjoy this game outside of just a 12v12 casual environment. So yeah, for starters, from the ground up, obviously TF2 has very deep roots in the arena shooter genre, built off of the Quake engine, with plenty of weapons that are homages to Quake. And by design, let's start with some specifics. Obviously, people care a lot about team recognition and class recognition because it is really important to understand at a moment's notice who you're engaging with, what their threats are, and what team they are on. These are all very important for being able to read the game at a moment's notice. Oh, there's a loud truck driving by. I hope that's not getting picked up. And while certainly this helps the game on all levels, including a casual level, it is also very important competitively, just being able to read the game very easily. And as a result, that's, it just improves the game overall from that readability standpoint, which is important for the game competitively. On top of the fact that being able to understand and read who's on what class, if they have any unlocks equipped, you can usually tell what they are. Stuff like that is quite nice, and definitely helps the game be more consistent and more enjoyable at a competitive level, and not just a casual level. The other big thing is just the movement and movement system, as well as the weapon design. They kind of work in tandem, where when you have these high damage, slow firing weapons, as well as generally very fast player movement, you compare to other games. And I know I make this comparison a lot, but like in Counter-Strike, for example, even with the knife out, you're moving maybe as fast as a soldier's walking speed, roughly speaking. And a class like Scout is just so much faster than that, and even just the base walking speed is much faster compared to other games. I know you look at comparisons, especially when like Overwatch first came out, you'd see comparisons between like Tracer and Scout, and just the base movement speed of Scout is just so much faster. This game has very fast grounded movement and a lot of movement options. So as a result, you have this really interesting defensive counterplay in movement, because again, these weapons are slow firing, so dodging a shot can turn the tide of a battle and change an interaction completely on its head to where suddenly you are winning the fight rather than the opponent, just through one missed shot, for example. And this type of skill expression absolutely lends TF2 towards being a very enjoyable game competitively, because the more skilled player can win in these interactions more often, which is very satisfying for people who are, very competitively spirited and want to win. Being able to, for example, as a demo, win against a scout in a 1v1 who, you know, by all means that scout is absolutely favored to win it, just because you're able to kind of outmove them and out-aim them is very satisfying, and TF2's design is very, very much, you know, lends itself towards that that style. So again, another example of the design elements of the game very much lending itself towards very clean and fair competitive play, not just casual play. Again, all these consistencies and all these you know, design elements that make the game very clean and very easy to, you know, easy to learn, easy to improve in. I don't know. Just make the game very understandable while also adding a ton of depth and skill expression. These certainly help in casual play, don't get me wrong. You know, even plenty of casual players or like YouTubers or whatever, a lot of the videos that they make about, you know, some journey or whatever, you look at like an Elmaxa video about, oh, you know, I played this class for this ungodly amount of time. A lot of the story there is about improvement, because even at that kind of casual level, still important, you know, improvement is still a big driving factor for people, and getting better is important. So yeah, it's still, while these still help the game casually, it's difficult to argue this is not something that makes the game much better and cleaner competitively as well. What are some other examples I can think of? Yeah, we covered kind of the ease of readability of the game. We talked about the kind of design of weapons and movement and whatnot, as well as sort of that hardcore arena shooter roots of the game. So yeah, I think all of those very much lend itself towards the game being successful competitively. There are plenty of design elements and things that really just improve the game casually, I suppose. You know, the actual character design itself, the fact that all the mercenaries are in their own way interesting and charming and whatnot. You know, it doesn't help make the game. It makes the game just more enjoyable in general. Not really competitively minded at all. But yeah, with these things in mind, let's take a look at what that kind of translates to, and all the different ways that people can enjoy this game. Because some of the time that I see these arguments, and sometimes it's in reply to like, even just like a weapon being banned, or it's like, oh, you like ban the Wrangler or whatever, like you're not even playing TF2 anymore, which to me seems very ridiculous, right? And the implication there, especially for like the weapon ban stuff, is like, oh, so if you like play a casual match and no one happens to be using this weapon, is that suddenly not TF2? But whatever. So what was the point I was making? Yeah, there's sometimes this kind of casual purism where if you're not playing the game with no restrictions 12v12, and you're not really like playing TF2, or like that is what TF2 is supposed to be, which I very much disagree with. And some of these crazy formats have existed for longer than casual matchmaking have. I know for many people who, like me, started playing back when quick play was a thing, you know, they just find themselves on a random server, and that was kind of just their home. For me, it was actually a low gravity Mario Kart server. So that is very much not like base game TF2, but it was still TF2 nonetheless. And I think that the fact that you can have, you know, a low gravity server on a goofy map be someone's primary way of enjoying the game. Or for example, all the different like goofy formats, like Verse Saxton Hale is now actually an official format, very TF2. You know, Prop Hunt has existed forever, as well as, what's it called? Like The Hidden was a TF2 mod as well. I remember, you know, back when I was in probably like middle school, late middle school, watching a Star video about The Hidden mod, and I'm like, oh, this is the sickest thing ever. Played that for a bit. I remember, you know, sitting in a corner, revved as Natasha heavy. A lot of fun. And I think that, you know, these goofy game modes, Pyro Dodgeball as well as like Soldier B-Ball, Jump Maps is an entire super in-depth, not only casual, but also a very competitive community as well, with like speedrunning and, you know, an entire leaderboard system and whatnot. Yeah, all of these are just testaments to the amount of depth and skill expression present in TF2 to where all these can be enjoyed equally. And I think that taking all of that and kind of throwing it away for the sake of, no, you have to play in this way or another, which, again, I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth. I don't truly think that people think that, you have to be playing 12v12 casual. But there are certainly, people who that's all they play, or that's the only, format they're playing. And if it doesn't look like that, then they immediately, get a little upset sometimes. But yeah, these all stand as a remarkable testament to the amount of depth and skill expression in the game. And that isn't even touching on the actual competitive formats, which again is plural. I see a lot of the time, people, when I talk about whitelist stuff or talk about ways in which sixes is not like 12v12 casual matchmaking, people just kind of get reflexively defensive, I guess, or annoyed at the idea, I suppose, that, this is different from casual matchmaking. But six is not the only format as well, and you have so many different formats that have different rule sets and whatnot. You have no restriction sixes, which is a competitive format with no restrictions at all. No whitelist, no whitelist, or excuse me, there's just no whitelist, right? You can use any weapon and no class limits either. Which, if people are genuinely interested in playing the game competitively, but are turned off at the idea of weapon whitelists or class restrictions, then that's available to them. Not to mention competitive formats that aren't even really base game TF2, like Pastime, which Pastime's like one of the sickest things ever. It's it's like a sport game in TF2 based off of the movement. And also a format in which stickies universally are banned because they're just too strong. So you have demos, their movement mechanic is trimping, which is really interesting and really sick. And I don't know, having an entire purview of different gameplay and just depth of, skill and depth of mechanics and depth of kind of metagame in all these different formats and all these different game modes, whether they be highly competitive like Sixes or Pastime or Highlander, or a little bit more casual, but still can totally try hard in it, such as a b-ball or a pyro dodgeball, or just mostly casual, such as a prop hunt or a low gravity full crit server or something like that. Being able to look at the purview and the full scope of all these different ways that people can enjoy TF2, and then kind of scoffing at that and insisting that 12v12 casual matchmaking is, with random crits and bullet spread disabled, is kind of the only way to enjoy the game, or the only way TF2 is meant to be enjoyed. It just starts to seem wholly ridiculous, right? Because, oh, I got stuck in a corner there and died. It seems wholly ridiculous, right? Because whether or not it's intended to be enjoyed this way or not, it says nothing about whether it can be enjoyed in other ways, which the answer is without a doubt that yes, it can be enjoyed in so many different ways, and that's kind of the beauty of TF2, I think. Was there anything else to talk about? I don't know. And also, it's worth mentioning that even casually, the game is not consistent. You go to something like Uncletopia, and you have class limits, and you have random bullet spread disabled, which I honestly think, if there was ever a setting that could get changed in TF2 to be like default, it should be random bullet spread. Because like random crits, there's at least some people that are like attached to the idea of random crits. But do people like genuinely want random bullet spread to exist? Because it's kind of just like random inconsistency for no reason whatsoever. And it's not even like fun inconsistency. Like, you can make the argument that hitting a random crit rocket and killing 4 people is fun, and someone might want random crits for that reason, but hitting someone for 100 damage with a scattergun when you probably only should have hit them for 60, like, people aren't hardly even going to notice. And it's just, yeah, random inconsistency for no reason. I think I'm kind of rambling, though. Overall, to answer the question yet again, was TF2 designed to be a competitive game or a casual game? A little bit of both, honestly. When you introduce aspects to the game that make it a more a more fair experience, and you introduce a lot of depth to the classes and to the skills of the game, as well as very intentionally adding a lot of skill expression to the game, then absolutely this game is going to thrive and flourish as a competitive game, as we have seen. You know, people have been playing TF2 competitively for as long as TF2 has been a thing, so it really shouldn't be surprising at all. And at the same time, obviously there's tons of consideration towards the game at a casual level. Pretty much all of the balancing is done with casual play in mind, with maybe a couple exceptions. And then, of course, you know, the actual design and art style and whatnot is just kind of meant to make the game more generally appealing without necessarily a specific eye in one way or the other. But yeah, that's a much a nuanced question, I guess. Since I'm repeating myself a lot here, I think we're probably done here. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all enjoy playing TF2 however you like to enjoy it, whether that be casual matchmaking. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention is, like, a lot of people, their experience playing the game is not 12v12. And in fact, like, 32-player servers were kind of a standard for casual play back when I was first getting into the game. So this idea that 12v12 is like the standard definitive way to play the game seems kind of extra ridiculous, because yeah, there's just so many people, even people who are extremely casual in this game, that isn't really their format that they play or of choice or anything like that. But anyway, I've probably made my point clear. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.